Well, hello, Facebook world. Welcome to Mythwind podcast. I'm joined by
Hello.
I'm joined by Nathan here. My name is Brendan.
I've already been introduced. I'm Nathan.
That's great. Hey guys, this is fantastic. This is podcast, or I was saying podcast, live stream slash podcast, I guess, number two. And so we're excited to get into some more information on Mythwind today. Make sure to post any questions that you have either in the YouTube chat or the Facebook chat, and we'll get to them eventually. But before we go any further, I just have a little bit of housekeeping to do for us. Like I mentioned, the Mythwind, we kind of convert this live stream to a podcast. So if you're not available to watch it live, you can catch it on podcast. Available everywhere right now except to Apple. We're still waiting on the Apple approval. So
Coming soon.
coming soon, yeah, hopefully. There's the link tree kind of the link below, and you can kind of get every single every oh every single. I almost ended the video accidentally. I'm trying to enter into a comment. You can get every link there. We this week, and Nathan's not going to be able to see this unless he has it live, but we released a mock-up of the box art. I just popped it up on live. Nathan, what do you think of the box art? What does it elicit in you?
Hopefully, it elicits the experience the player sort of would feel as they first walk into the valley. Sort of this open, big space with a lot of possibilities, kind of a blank space to grow and become a part of.
Yeah, it
That's what I think
yeah, it's
of.
great. And if you've been following along since the beginning, we had a box art from a different artist that kind of had a similar vibe, but we switched artists, and so we wanted to capture something in his style. This is Dan Wing, our artist, and so it's great. I think the character, is it the crafter who has the horse overlooking the valley? I think so. Maybe.
Undetermined.
Undetermined.
It could it could be anybody, and that's kind of the point, right? I think it's you come into the valley and anything's possible.
Yeah, there's this news, and then I love there's this kind of these towers in the game that we're gonna talk more about. There's kind of this remnant from a magical world, and they have a unique gameplay element in Mythwind, and so you can actually see that in the background. And I was actually thinking, Nathan, that we might need to modify the box art a little bit because the tower might need to be kind of more broken. I'm not too sure. We can we can talk more about that. But okay, so that's the box art. We posted it live. We were trending on Board Game Geek, which was fun. At least the artwork was for a while. I just want to let you all know we are building a wonderful community. So thank you for joining in here, for signing up on Discord. All those links can be found in Linktree. Our mailing list is growing. We're coming up to like the big 10,000 mark. You can also kind of notify to be reminded of the launch on Kickstarter when we go live. It's kind of fun. Everything's kind of rolling forward. Okay, I think that's my housekeeping. Nathan, what are we talking about today?
Well, I think we wanted to start with the town. Really. What is the town? How does it work? And what is the role that it plays within the game? And I think that the way to think about it is that the town is kind of the center around everything that you do. The town is really kind of a home base, and all of your actions happen in town. And and at the same time, the town is a thing that'll be kind of unique to every single player. So as you interact with the town, um, everything you're doing within your role, whether it's a crafter or a farmer or what have you, you're going to be funneling the money you make into the town. But how I build the town might be different than Brendan builds the town. Um, but no matter what role you're playing, the town is always there. So it's consistent in that way. It's a baseline, but it'll have different colors to it, if you
Yeah,
will,
and
depending on who's
yeah,
playing.
no, exactly. And the town, I think, really has this kind of unique centering element. Like I've visited, we're from Canada up here. We're Canadians, but I visited Europe a couple times, and each time I go to Europe, I'm always amazed at how the towns, how all the small towns are structured, right? You have this kind of big kind of chapel church kind of in the center of town, and it has,
Or like a
yeah,
pavilion.
pavilion. It's tall, right? You can kind of see it from wherever you are, and then it's like spokes from like on a bike tire that everything kind of moves away, but every kind of road eventually leads to that center point in a lot of these kind of old school European towns. And in a sense, that feeling of everything kind of leading to one space is how we're building the town in Mythwind. We want all the roles to kind of center around the town, and the town is this unifying component, this, more than just a component, it's a unifying kind of piece and structure that all the roles just feed into together. And so you get this really kind of unique interplay where maybe the crafter and the farmer aren't interacting directly side by side, but they're interacting in the town itself, which is really neat.
Yeah, and when you show up as a player in the story of the game, it's clear that there are people who have lived there before. There's foundations of buildings and so on. So you're building your town really on top of something that already existed, and it's the story of who was there will be uncovered as you go. But like you're saying, it makes sense that a town is built in a certain way, where you have kind of the town center and it branches out, like you say. And we want to kind of create that same kind of feeling, even as you're uncovering the history of what was there. You know, well, what happened to the people that were there before? What happened to their town? And how does it affect your town as you build out?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so the town itself, all characters, they will interact with the town, and when they interact with the town, they have the option of doing the same actions. But how those actions can impact their own player roles, we'll talk about in the future. But right now we want to talk about, okay, hey, when you go to town, what are the things that you can do? And even before we get there, there's this an idea. Hey, you're in this new world, you're in this new valley, and it's kind of this magical world, and you're pioneers. And so you have this goal of really kind of discovering more about the world in which you inhabit, but also building up the town. And so buildings themselves take a large kind of role in the game of Mythwind, and we're doing up a ton of like cool artwork. And so I'm just gonna I'll showcase the general store right now. But we have a lot of unique buildings. I think the current number, which may or may not be in the game, Nathan, what do you have, like 40 some
52.
52 buildings and
That's a starting point.
starting point. So we're gonna trim, we're gonna move things around, but all these buildings have unique actions, and whether they're active actions or passive actions that you can kind of participate in, you're going to be kind of populating your town with these buildings, and you're going to be building them together. And I think this is a large through line because to build the buildings, all the roles are going to have to work together and contribute, because the town has this living economy, and we have a couple of different kind of tracks to measure different things like income and food and production levels of your town's economy, and each role can influence these tracks, and some roles are better at influencing some parts of the economy better than the others, and these kind of triggers, like your town's resources, this is what you need to spend in order to build these buildings. And so you're actually working together collectively to like build up the town and then build these buildings.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the sort of examples I think of in my head as we're trying to build this experience is Little House on the Prairies. I don't know if you ever would have seen that. That might have been before your time. But like a small town in like kind of an old west setting like that is a community, right?
Yeah.
And I think what the play experience we're trying to create is the sense of like a group of people coming together as a community to build something together. And so obviously it's a cooperative game, and one of your actions is essentially investing into the town to, you're putting a lot of work into improving the resources of the town or what the town can itself put out. Um, and that's on top of just like actually the building of the town kind of a thing. So everything you're doing is definitely a collective, cooperative, working together experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so the town actions that we have right now, we can maybe speak a little bit to each of them. There's the town improvement, there's construct, use a building, adventure, recruit, and odd job. Okay, so it's town improvements, construct, using a building, adventure, recruit, and odd job. And so maybe let's just kind of hit them in order. And Nathan just mentioned with town improvements, the town itself has an economy, and we have right now 5 kind of resources that mark your town's kind of well-being and goods, like your resources, and that's food, income,
Okay.
production. I'm missing a couple.
Culture.
Culture and happiness. These are the 5 different aspects, and they can be influenced in many different ways. But one of the ways that they're influenced is by doing the town improvements action in town, and that's where you actually get to cash in the labor, the goods of your labor from your particular role, and improve the town itself. So that's town improvements. Nathan, maybe speak to construction, because using the town improvements.
Yeah, so yeah, typically you're going to use that economy of the town in order to build stuff. So something like a lumber yard level of production. Your town needs enough production to build something that is going to turn that lumber into planks of wood that you can use to build other things. And every time you construct, so there's that cost to it, and it takes a little time to build it. So you do need a little bit of planning. If I know if I want a building later in the season, I better get it started now. That kind of a thing. And and yeah, so I mean that's probably the backbone of what the town's identity will be the different buildings that you have, because once you get those buildings in place, that'll be when you're getting passive benefits. That's when you're getting more locations you can visit, and you yourself as a role character can go visit a tavern or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, so that will be where a lot of the kind of variability of the game will show up too. The new kind of like rule breaking abilities will exist in the buildings that are out there in the town that you're basically selecting which ones are important to you.
Yeah, and so you kind of get this interesting like worker placement element where you're placing your worker and you're triggering an action, and the game's not a worker placement game per se, because you have everything that's going on in your role, which is unique. And these actions in town, some of them might impact your role in unique ways. But yeah, as I just want to pick up something on your saying, Nathan, that when you build a building, or when you begin construction on a building, it goes into the building queue, and in the town, in the town board itself, there is a queue, and throughout the season, certain season cards will trigger activating the building queue, and it will kind of push the buildings forward. And so I think the similar thing that we were talking about, Nathan, when we were thinking of this idea was what's the game? Star Wars Rebellion, wasn't it?
Right, right. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so
Star Wars Rebellion, you have on the turn counter every once in a while a build queue that kind of moves everything you're producing forward. And this is kind of similar. It's not as set. You can't anticipate exactly when you're gonna move forward. with the building. You don't know exactly how long it'll take. Some season cards, rainy days, those are probably not going to be, building days. But if you have nice sunny weather, you have a better chance of buildings moving forward, that kind of a thing. So there are these sort of other variables that you can't always anticipate, but you can kind of plan for that will impact stuff like your construction.
Yeah, no, and it's absolutely, so you get this real sense of a bustling community. Yeah, so that's town improvements, construction, and the buildings. They are really like the backbone of the town itself, and we have kind of these two main kind of measures of health in your town. One is the population track, and one is the sprite track, and we'll talk more about that. I think that the population and the sprites kind of deserve their own episode. But moving on, we have an ability for players to go on an adventure. And so there's a deck, an adventure deck that's going to get populated by different adventures that players can embark on. And so maybe instead of doing a town improvement or using a building, players actually just want to discover more about the world itself, more about Mythwind, more about what's going on in the valley. And so they can choose to do an adventure. And oftentimes, Nathan, you're in the midst of writing some of those adventures right now. Maybe you can speak a little bit broadly to that.
Well, it plays off the idea that, again, you are strangers to this valley and it's largely an untamed place. And so there's a lot to explore, there's a lot to experience. And so an adventure is, essentially going for a walk and seeing what happens. Maybe a little more intentional than that. I mean, maybe we lean into like mapping the valley or something like that. But the point is that you're not necessarily just in town, just working away. You might want to go see what's in the mountains, or you're near the ocean, or that kind of a thing. So it basically allows you to just do something a little different than being industrious. You need to take a little break from your responsibilities every once in a while. So it adds a little sort of side story
Yeah.
flavor. It's not necessarily the main thrust of the story, but some of the things that happen in the main story might show up in the adventure deck. So
Yeah.
that's something that we've been kind of playing with, where if in the main story, uh, you know, a tree falls down, maybe later in the adventure deck, that same tree is relevant. That's a pretty boring example, but the point is that one thing can impact the other, and possibly even vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. It is a real sense of a living place. There's also the ability when you go to town to, maybe you need an extra buck, and so you can do an odd job. It's kind of like a catch-all action, which you probably won't do very often, but we found that there's some instances where you need a little bit of flexibility. And then lastly is this idea of recruiting. And, this is something that we've kind of hinted at with some of the developer diaries. But there's this tower, this magical tower. You're going to learn more about it in this story of Mythwind, but it kind of centers the town. It anchors the town, and buildings are kind of built out from it. And at the tower, at the center, we imagine that it's a gathering point. And so as your town grows, right, there's going to be more people, more workers who are willing to do work. And also as your town grows in the valley, there's going to be more sprites, more magical creatures from the valley that are actually going to, join your town, be a part of your town. And so at this kind of center meeting place, at this tower, you can do the recruit action. And you recruit these workers, you recruit these dice, whether they're worker dice or sprite dice, and you actually recruit them into your board, into your player board, and each player uses these extra workers in a completely unique way, and so you get this like sense that your town's going to grow, and so you're going to be you're this kind of dice allocation, this dice kind of group is going to grow, right, representing the workers and the sprites, and you're going to use them more, and so you get this real escalation of ability and of growth and of potential as your town grows.
Yeah, it's one of the factors that really shapes the identity of your
Yeah,
town. If your focus really is on productivity and innovation, um, having an efficient economy, probably that population side of your town will really grow, and you'll have more access to workers that you can hire. But if your focus is more on sustainability and um, more kind of the magical aspect, you'll have more access to sprites to help you out, and there's a benefit to both sides. You might have a more balanced approach, so both sides kind of climb a little bit more slowly. But as you are doing things with your role, as you are building certain buildings, you'll find that workers versus sprites can both help you, just in different ways.
yeah, yeah. It's really cool. It's a really neat identity that we're looking forward to kind of showing more, and it's really going to evolve as you play our game based off of choices, and that's kind of as much as I want to say on that. Nathan, is there anything else that you want to maybe touch base about the town? I know we've kind of chatted about it for the past few minutes. I want to get to some Q&A, but anything else on the town you think would be important to mention?
Just that I think one of the most interesting things about our premise to me is seeing pictures of how people will play and comparing people's towns a few years into the game, and just seeing how they're different because everything you're doing really centers around it. I mean, even the event deck is there and the season deck is there, and so yeah, just to see people's towns evolve differently, to see what they prioritize, to see how they pull different stories out of the game, what's memorable to
Yeah.
them, that kind of a thing. Um, just to hint at one thing, we're talking about doing sort of a journal aspect to it, and again, just I'm just kind of curious to see how different and unique the experiences are for people with that town.
Yeah, it is going to be a different feeling each playthrough for each person. Even if you have multiple playthroughs, the game will grow and develop differently. Hey, so let's get into a couple Q&As that we posted earlier this week. And again, if you have any more questions, feel free to post them. But here's a couple, and I don't know if we're even going to answer many of them. The first one is, can you give a brief description of what each role's main goals are? What is the main game mechanism behind each? The example from the last stream being the crafter having to pick orders from a bake to fulfill. And that's actually, I think I might have given that example. That's a wrong example from my end. But I want to put a pin in that because I think next week we're going to probably speak about the farmer. And the following week maybe we'll speak a little bit about the crafter because I think it's worthwhile for us to kind of spend some time speaking about those roles. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. And second question, can we expect a majority of worker placement? I would be intrigued by community of workers. What is your plans about an external threat? Nathan, do you want to take part one, part two on there?
Um, yeah, I'll answer the whole thing, and then you feel free to elaborate. Because the roles are all distinct, I wouldn't say it's a majority of worker placement. You've mentioned how the town has that element
Yeah.
to it, and again, that town is a consistent thing. So no matter what role you're playing, there is some worker placement, and I'm also intrigued by a community of workers, and I think that would really be the hirelings that you get, the workers in the sprite die. Um, and hopefully that evokes the sense that like there's a bunch of people doing this together, and again, that sense of community is something that I hope is part of the game
Mm-hmm.
experience. And as far as external threat, I don't know much to give away here.
Uh, yeah,
It's not the focus of the game. I'll just say that.
yeah. Like I think tension might be the better word. Um,
Right.
there's a tension in the game, um, less so like evil beasts coming to ravage the land and you have to defend against them. Yeah, that's not
Maybe a little bit of evil beasts.
maybe
We don't know yet.
maybe you're right. Maybe maybe there's a volcano that's going to explode. Um, I don't know. Who knows? Great. Okay, next question. This one's a simple one. Is there a combat element? And if so, can the weapons be customized with different resources for damage bonuses? Is there a PvP element? No, there's not. With the asterisk, here's an asterisk I'm going to have. There's a couple of potential future roles that might have a little bit of this element. I don't think it would ever be PvP, but maybe. But like, there's a role like an adventurer that Nathan, I haven't even talked to you about this, but this is future. I was thinking it could be kind of cool to like have like a mini dungeon crawling thing that the adventurer does. For kind of their game. So it's just a thought I had, that's combat based. And then a thought that we had a while back about this kind of neat idea for an expansion would be like how were we structuring it? Like it was like sheriff and thief.
Oh yeah, right.
What were the roles that we were talking about there?
Yeah, basically like a criminal and a sheriff, and that would be definitely more adversarial.
Yeah, so
And someone's basically trying to run in this town as it builds up. Part of the story of a town is that the more prosperous it becomes, the more it invites people who are going to take advantage of that prosperity. And so, organized crime is often kind of hand in hand with the growth of a town. The movie Gangs of New York is kind of an example of that. Like, as soon as people got off of the boat into New York, they're already kind of getting pulled into a life of crime. And so there is a story to be told in this evolution of the Mythwind town. But whether or not that's something we'll do,
who knows?
we don't know
Who
yet.
knows?
Yeah.
Maybe in the future.
I mean, I think the fact is, if this game works and the setting works, it opens up a lot of possibilities of different things to do with it, whether it's expansions or a different game with the same
Yeah,
setting.
no, I 100% agree. Hey, well, that's fantastic. I think that is a wrap for us today. Thank you all for joining us on another Mythwind live stream. Our aim is to be coming with a new live stream / podcast every week or every other week. It just kind of depends on how busy Nathan and I are with game design. As always, feel free to leave us a note. Probably the two best places in our Discord channel or in our Facebook group. Those are kind of the two best places for interacting with us right now. And other than that, hey, thank you again for joining us. It was fantastic to be here with you all.